Well, welcome to the inaugural podcast episode, Racing Nuggets. I'm PJ Noodleman, joined by Dan Plan of the Midwest Racing Connection. We will be your hosts for this journey. And Dan, I am so tickled to be doing something else with you. I already write a little bit for your paper, but you're a good guy to be involved with because you're very active, going to a lot of different races.
Yeah, it'll be good to talk racing right now, especially since it's been almost a couple of months since I've been somewhere, and it's cold and snowed some this morning, so it'll be nice to talk to some different people here during the off season.
Indeed. Now you really don't discriminate. You do dirt, you do asphalt, you get around quite a bit. How many races did you go to this last year?
Not as many as I have in the very long ago, pre-marriage kid days. I think I started out to about 60 this year. It helps going to speed weeks because you can get a lot of races in 1 week there, and then it's about half and half dirt and asphalt over the course of the summer. I've got two tracks that are both within an hour of home, so that works out well, and plenty of other options, midweek specials and stuff like that. So try to get around.
Nice. I think you do a great job at it. We've got some exciting stuff coming up next year. Not one, but two national tours are going to be debuting. And I'm not quite sure how that will all work. It seems like they're kind of competing against each other rather than trying to work together. It's strange.
Yeah, it's it'll be nice to see a national tour come around again. On the dirt side, they've had for the longest time two with the World of Outlaws and the Lucas Series. This year there was basically four, so it kind of spread things out. I think there's enough cars on the pavement side to have one national tour. I'm not sure if everybody can do two, even if they do work their schedules out so they don't conflict. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. Hopefully it's not a nuclear war.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. Already it seems like they're kind of competing against one another with their date selections too. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think the season is going to start out with a couple of back-to-back shows, and a lot of those teams, it's just hard to get the resources to travel that much, back-to-back weekends. So hopefully things pan out, but we'll see how it goes.
And of course, everybody wants to bring up payout too. Dirt pays more than asphalt. That's all we ever hear. It's like, well,
yeah, I mean it's been that way, right? But it's the asphalt side is coming around. There are more and more specials that are in the $20,000-$30,000 range to pay, that pay to win. I think where the dirt has it is they've been established longer, and they've got a lot of people following their series and a lot of corporate backing, and that's where the pavement side will need to go to make that happen.
I would agree with that too. I would agree with that. Well, I just got back from Florida. There are two big pay races down there, 417 and then the Snowball Derby. And I got to say, I missed the efficiency of the program of a Chuck Deary, Greg McCarnes production. Holy smokes. God bless. I'm glad that there's some racing going on that we can travel south for, but they could take a page out of Chuck Deary, Greg McCarnes, and how they run a program. My goodness, those programs just run on. They don't have the next race lined up ready to go. So I think we get really spoiled in the Midwest because by and large, our promoters up here do a darn good job of moving things along pretty quickly. Not so much the case. It's a little more lackadaisical, little lollygagging down south.
Yeah, I would agree from the few times I've been down there. I've said it before, I don't think people realize how lucky they are to have what we have up here. 99% of the time when I get frustrated with the efficiency of a program, it's a dirt race. But sometimes when I watch some of these streams of the events down south, the efficiency is lacking on the program. And it's nice up here. I know, years ago, probably 30 years ago, Oktoberfest would run pretty late. But during the Deary McCarnes era, they've constantly tweaked things, and we don't run 6 divisions on one night. There's it's just limited divisions. I like the fact that we still do heat races during Oktoberfest. Late models run all 4 nights, which is a real bonus. So those guys, they're still getting a paycheck at the end of the night. They get to practice, but then they also get to race and get a paycheck all 4 nights. So that's kind of nice. It doesn't have the huge payout like there is down south, but it's just my personal opinion. I like the way it's done up here better than other parts of the country.
I do too. And I can't hardly handle intermissions. I mean, I don't need one.
No,
And I know they think they're going to sell more hot dogs, but I think they would find they do all right if they didn't
I
take
think
that
it was
huge
in
break.
as you can see, I've got a big collection of books, but they're all racing books. And the one I've got a Earl Baltus book, the guy that had Eldora before Tony Stewart bought it. And there's one quote in there where I think it was the World 100 where they had just a huge crowd in the early days. And one of the reporters asked Earl at the end of the race how things went. And he said, if I would have just sold one more hot dog, I think I might have broke even. So I think there's a lot of that to it sometimes.
Yes, I agree. And at 417, again, not complaining. It's just a different approach, but they had one class. They took an intermission, and then they also did another break for autograph session or meet and greet down on the track. And I could not believe the whole show. It was almost 4 or 5 hours long with one division. And to me, it was like, wow, that probably could have hustled that along a little bit more, maybe. I don't know. So, and we won't go into the tech on this one. We'll save that for another discussion, right? Oh my goodness. It is a very hollow subject indeed.
I'll be here all day.
Yeah, thank you. Try the veal, right? We'll be chatting a little bit later on with Nichole Fredrickson. She is the sister of Danny Fredrickson and David Fredrickson. And she doesn't know it yet, but we're going to actually surprise her with both of her brothers popping in while we're interviewing her. They are a family that have actually been involved in racing. Their whole family ran the Elko Speedway, Dan, and you were up there during those days watching them. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting a little behind the scenes view from them and kind of all in the family story style about growing up and racing.
Yeah, I think, as we get older, a lot of things seem better when we were younger. And, that's when most of my friends were still involved in having race cars. And the Fredrickson family had the track, and, Nikki was a scorer for a long time. Danny grew up and started racing, and David did some racing as well. So known the family for quite some time.
Well, I'm looking forward to diving in and chatting with them. Nikki, obviously, facing a battle right now with breast cancer, and we will talk to her a little bit about that. Talk to her about tattoos and just kind of racing in general then as the boys join in with us. So we will continue with the interview when we come back. This is the Racing Nuggets podcast with PJ Noodleman and Dan Plan. Welcome back. We are into our first interview with Miss Nichole Fredrickson. Welcome, Nikki. We are glad to have you here.
Thanks.
I've actually written about you before, paper, Midwest Racing Connection. Yeah, about your journey with cancer. You have been probably the biggest cheerleader and supporter for so many in racing, and especially for your family. And now, as you've been diagnosed with breast cancer, you've gone through chemo. You just finished today, round 13 of 20 of radiation. You've got a lot of people cheering for you now. What's that like?
Actually, just even hearing you say it kind of gives me goosebumps because it's pretty crazy, to be honest with you. It's very overwhelming. But at the same time, it is, if I start feeling bad or, for those moments when you're like, oh, dude, this game sucks. It's like some little kid will give you the biggest hug and you're like, all right, we're good. Moving on. It really reinforces that racing is a family.
Ain't that the truth? Oh my goodness, that is so the truth. Now you went through the chemo, and then they came back and told you that you had to do radiation. What was the reason why you had to continue on with radiation yet?
So when I started, they said, okay, well, we'll do the lumpectomy and then you should be okay without doing chemo. But then, after the lumpectomy, then we'll do the radiation. And they said 3 weeks. And I'm like, all right, 3 weeks. That's not so bad. I can do that. But then after the lumpectomy, they send it out to California for what they call an onco score, ONCO. And then what that determines is how fast and aggressive the tumor is and what stage it's in and all that other good jazz. Okay. So, you know, they said upfront, well, we can't promise that you won't need chemo, but chances are good you won't need chemo. You'll just need the radiation. I'm like, all right. So we did that. You wait 2 painful weeks for this onco score to come back. I don't know why they can't make that process any faster, but so waited the 2 weeks and got the news that my onco type score is 28, which is up in the higher levels. And the onco score, it basically just determines what your probability of it returning is. So if it's above a certain number, then you have to do chemo as well. So they threw in, I was the winner of 4 rounds of chemo, which I'm glad that's over. And then went and I was like, all right, hard part's done. Let's go. Went and met with the radiologist. I'm like, all right, when do I start my 3 weeks? I got to be done. And actually, I had to get approval to start radiation early because I'm kind of on a mission. I wanted to be done and have a week to rest before my niece and nephew's race in New Smyrna between Christmas and New Year's. I'm like, well, I'm already missing the Derby. Not going to miss that. So got that done. And then the radiologist was like, it's going to be 4 weeks rather than 3. And I'm like, oh, all right, whatever. So they started me early and I will be done in time to head to New Smyrna with the littles to cheer them on when they race at New Smyrna in their quarter midgets.
I love that you are focused on the racing. That has to kind of help though, to have like a goal that you wanted to hit to keep you focused on something positive.
Well, I mean, let's get realistic. We're in Minnesota and any chance someone gets to get out of here into Florida and have racing on top of it, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? So
absolutely. Yeah. Nice. So talk to me just a little bit about what's that like having people pray for you? I know that you're a very faith-based person.
I am. And I'm going to be totally honest. It makes me feel like I need to be a better person to deserve all the love. And you know what I mean? Like, maybe I shouldn't swear at that guy when I'm going on the freeway and he's going slow in the fast lane or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I just got to be a better person now because, you know, but it's, I overwhelming more than anything. You know what I mean? It's hard to put into words that, you know, you're out. I've always been the one saying, okay, what can I do to help? Let me know, or, you know, jumping in whenever you can. But because I think I don't know. I mean, you get more out of giving than getting, right? But being on the receiving side of the giving is very humbling, and it's pretty powerful, to be honest.
Yeah. Let's talk tattoos. You got a really cool tattoo, and it's kind of become your mantra for this whole cancer journey. Nothing to it. Tell us the story behind Nothing to It, and show the tattoo if you're willing to.
Sure. So the tattoo is on my collarbone, and it's probably going to be backwards but it says Nothing to It.
Looks great.
The story behind that is I have 2 kiddos. My son is 21, my daughter is 18. And when I sat my son down to tell him about the diagnosis, we got through a few minutes of the initial kind of freak out. And then I'm like, Parker, it's fine. It's a season. We're going to get through it, you know? And he was real kind of introspective for a minute. He looks up at me, he goes, Mom, it's just like Blake says, nothing to it. And I kind of looked at him like, huh? So Blake is my nephew. He's 8 and he races quarter midgets. He's David's son. Turns out, and I didn't know any of this beforehand, but turns out that Blake was getting a little bit nervous because he had to start at the back of the feature for in his new division in quarter midget racing. So David looks at him and he goes, Blake, it's just like Uncle Danny says. When he was at lacrosse, he had to start at the back. We got to the front. He says, nothing to it. And so Blake was like, all right, okay, it's been done. It's not impossible. I can do this, you know? And he won, and he rolls into victory lane and pops the visor up on his helmet. And he's like, nothing to it. And he was so jacked. So then I was talking to David and I'm like, hey, we're stealing Blake's we're stealing Blake's line. Nothing to it. And he goes, well, you know, that came from Danny. And so he told me the story. And so then I called Dan, I'm stealing your line, nothing to it. And he's like, well, it's not actually my line. And I'm sitting here thinking, how many people are we going to rip this slogan off from, you know? He goes, no, he goes, Kyle Busch actually said it. And I think, now you're testing my brain. I want to say it was maybe a Phoenix race from like, I don't know, 10 years ago. He'd had, you know, some issues going on with the car and they'd put new parts in and he had to start in the back. And he gets to the front, keys his mic and says nothing to it. Totally just relaxed, chill. And I'm like, all right, well, my sister-in-laws and I have this thing. If we are ever at a race, an away race, and there's a rain delay, chances are good we're gonna find a tattoo shop and we're gonna get a tattoo. Or like for my 40th birthday, we all got tattoos, you know, big milestone things. So I'm like, all right, well, girls, we're gonna get tattoos. And they're like, all right. And I started thinking about it. Well, Bon Sauce, who grew up 3 miles from here, and, you know, was a big part of Elko racing before he moved down south, you know, has worked with Kyle Busch and knows him. And he had sent me a text earlier in the week saying, if I can ever help out with anything, let me know. And I'm like, well, there you go. I do need your help. This is gonna be great, right? So I told him the story of the nothing to it slogan and why I said, you know, we're gonna go get tattoos and it'd be really cool as kind of like a nod to Kyle if I could get the tattoo in his handwriting. And as, you know, like a thank you for providing my slogan to kick cancer's butt. So I sent it to him on like a Thursday evening or something. And Friday morning, I wake up to a text and he'd sent a screenshot showing that it came from Kyle. And Kyle actually wrote it once in pen and once in like Sharpie, you know, and sent it along. So that's what we did. And the tattoo artist thought it was pretty cool. He was a huge Kyle Busch fan. So that was kind of fun.
That's cool. So you basically have Kyle Busch writing nothing to it on your collarbone there.
Right? Yeah.
That's cool.
Talk about a racing groupie. I mean, come on, right? But I don't know. It's kind of fun.
It's cool. You've actually been blogging about your whole journey on caringbridge.org. And I know that you have kind of put a racing twist on everything that you've shared. And I love that. That's pretty cool.
You know, sometimes those come to me like in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh, that's a good analogy. I need to use that one, you know? And the one that I never ended up writing was I was going to liken this whole journey to the Trickle 99. You know, there's 3 segments. And so you want the lowest score at the end and, you know, to get through it all, like the first segment being the surgery, the second segment being chemo, and then the third segment being radiation. But I got distracted. Never got that one in there.
And that's okay. That's okay. But you are still such a huge race fan. And you said you're getting ready to go down to New Smyrna to cheer on your nieces and nephews. And everything looks on track for you to be able to go down there for that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I might actually have to bring sunscreen this time, you know, because, you know, once you have radiation, you can't like be in the sun. And I'm like, well, we'll just use a lot of sunscreen and call it good.
Yeah.
But
A live play-by-play on the quarter midget page again.
well, of course. Okay. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Dan Diker, who didn't race, but who announced for years at Toma and Lacrosse, has bailed on us and moved to Florida. Well, there was a race not that long ago, and he was there as a fan, and he went on live, and it's so much fun to listen to him. And one of the quarter midget parents reached out. They're like, Nick, you should do it like Dan Diker does. And I started laughing. I'm like, no one can do it like Dan Diker does. Like, I'm going to put this, the camera's going to be in one spot so you can see the whole track. And I'll tell you who's in first and second, third, and whatever. That's about it. I'm not, it's
if there's a caution, you got to go, oh, here we go.
Oh, here we go. I will. That I can do. That'd be fun, actually. I will do that.
I love it.
Race. I will totally do that.
I love it. I love it. No secret. I actually talk to you about this because a lot of times after you finish your, and I thought that instead of ringing a bell, you should be waving a checkered flag. So I do have, it's like a 3x5 flag that I took down to Florida, and I got a bunch of autographs on it already and well wishes. Bond Sus signed it for you. I even had your brother Danny sign it.
Yay!
Yeah, so there was Katie and James Swan signed. Dan Diker signed it because I saw him at 417 as well.
Oh my
so
gosh.
There's already a lot of signatures on it, but I'm going to be sending it up to your sister-in-law Stephanie so that she can get the rest of the Elko crew and the little Elko crew and all your buddies and friends up there to sign it as well too, because I want you to have that to wave. When is your last radiation treatment?
The 19th.
Okay, that's coming up.
December 19th. Yeah. So I'll have to have one of the sisters come with so they can, record it. I'm totally geeking out about that. I'm so excited. I'm thinking to myself, all right, where can I get a full-size flag to practice with? Because I don't want to look like an idiot when I'm doing it, Because there's a definite art to doing it,
You will be fine. You'll be just fine. I promise. All right. There was one more thing I wanted to do, and I'm waiting here to see. We'll give it a few minutes. I had a surprise for you, Nick, but we'll have to wait. It's coming. It's
okay.
coming. But until then, so after you're done with radiation, does everything just resume in your life normally, or other than having to avoid the sun? What else do you have to be careful of?
Well, I'm going back to normal. I don't care what anybody else says. But so after most women that have had breast cancer will be required to take a hormone blocker for 5 to 10 years. And I've heard such horror stories about that. I'm going to be like, I don't know. But I mean, it can't be worse than everything else that's going on. So we'll just roll with the punches and do what we got to do. The one thing that baffles me is everyone that I talk to, they're like, oh, okay, so when is your first scan after it's all over with to make sure it's all gone? And I asked the oncologist and she's like, no, we don't do those. I'm like, wait, what? So apparently after you suffer through all of these different treatments, you don't get any like instant gratification of, yay, you win. You have to wait till like your 6-month scan to show that it's all good.
Oh, wow.
So whatever. Gives you something else to look forward to, I guess, but that's all I learned.
You definitely have a good support system around you, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Funny, I wasn't going to tell anyone. But
oh
goodness.
Yes. What were you going to tell us?
I wasn't going to tell anyone. Hey, I wasn't going to tell anyone about it because I was like, I'll just, head down, barrel through it. But I have these brothers that are, I don't know if we'll say overprotective or people-y, but I didn't end up having to tell anyone because my brothers did it for me and rallied the troops before I even realized that I needed troops rallied. So that was pretty sweet.
That is cool. Hey, and that was part of the reason.
That's mainly brother Dave.
Oh,
we have joining us right now, your brothers. Danny and David joining us. I kind of wanted to surprise you with that because I thought it would be fun to kind of chat with the Fredrickson kids and transition from what you've gone through to just you guys growing up together racing and being involved in racing. Were you going to say something else, Danny?
No, thanks for coordinating this family reunion for us here.
Well, let's quick talk about you guys. Your dad, your parents were basically running Elko Speedway when you guys were just little shavers. So what was that like growing up at a racetrack like that?
Well,
Go ahead, Nikki.
I learned how to drive on the racetrack in the middle of the winter when there was ice and snow covering everything. We had this old 84 Dodge Charger that we drove around, and my parents were in some sort of sponsorship meeting, in the office. And for some reason, even though I'm the oldest, Danny was always the one that learned to do all the mechanical stuff first. So if I wanted to learn, I had to learn from Danny. So the first time I had driven a car, actually not just, up and down the driveway, we get on the racetrack, middle of winter, snow covered, ice packed, slippery as all get out. Danny's like, all right, give her the beans, go. And we're going into one, and he throws the e-brake and yells, steer out of it. And I wanted to kill him. Seriously wanted to kill him. We didn't hit the wall. No one died. No one crashed. I was able to do it. But since then, when I have taught my kids to drive, I'll take them to the parking lot up here and I'll do the exact same thing to them. I'm like, well, Danny did it to me. Welcome to the world of driving,
Oh, shoot. So you're the oldest, Nichole.
I am.
And then David, you're the baby of the family, yes?
Yes.
Okay. What's that like having these two nuts older than you to grow up with, though?
It was pretty awesome. Danny would usually toughen me up somehow, and then Nikki would kind of smooth it out and console, I guess. But growing up at the track was pretty awesome. I was a lot younger than they were, so while they were, Danny was say maybe fixing something with my dad, and my mom and Nikki were in the office taking care of paperwork or whatever was going on. I was too young to do any of that, so I kind of was the lucky one. I got to just ride my pedal bike around the racetrack as many laps as I could in a day. So that was pretty sweet. Free reign
I
of the
love it.
place during the week.
I love it. Now, did all of you race? I mean, obviously, I know Danny still does once in a while, but David, you used to race, yes? And will you ever race again?
I don't know. I raced from 07, I think, or 08 to 2012 when I got married, and then just been too busy and broke since, I guess. And it has always been a lot funner to help Danny win than me to get 10th. So I just started helping him again. But now that all the kids are into racing, they talk about how Uncle Dan is a race car driver, and Papa Tim, and Uncle John Olson or whatever is a race car driver, and they never say me. So I might have to just try it again just to show them that I can do it.
I've got pictures.
Yeah.
I think you raced more at Sauk than you did at Elko, right?
Yeah, there was
Is there a reason, another reason why? Did you like the track better, or was there another reason you raced at Sauk?
they had good walking tacos up there.
So the
Shoot.
story behind that, Dan and Jacqueline, if you didn't know, is we went to, so there was I-94 Sauk Center and then I-94 Fergus Falls, which is maybe another hour and a half north from Sauk Center. And there was a rain out. We were up there racing, and it rained out basically, I think maybe before the heat races even got over with. And so Tim, well, I think how it went was Tim Olson walked by, and I said, "Hey, is there any walking tacos left?" Because they had good walking tacos. And he's like, "Oh yeah, they made a bunch." I said, "Just give me a good deal and bring them all down here. We'll buy them all." So down comes Jessica with this huge box of walking tacos, and it was pretty much love at first walking taco. The rest is history for Dave. So he basically owes his entire family to our love for tacos.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Nikki, did you ever race?
No. Heck no.
No.
Heck no. No, because I would do something stupid And then I would be so ashamed to even go back to the racetrack because I'd like wreck someone else's car or something. And yeah, no,
No.
no,
And
I
David,
am.
go ahead.
I was
Not
gonna say I'm
something.
much better cheering them on than anything else.
Well, you definitely are a good cheerleader. David, you spotted. Do you still spot for Danny?
Yeah, I think I've missed like 2 of his races before. One was an ARC race and one I was at Sock Center Racing. He was at Elko, I think, or something. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, I think it's only been 2 races in his career I've missed. So
So he was slacking basically.
yeah.
There's no
Well,
reason he had to miss those.
Dan Plan and I were kind of talking ahead of time. I'm waiting for Dan to just go ahead and pop the question off right now.
Yeah, I was gonna ask David if Oktoberfest was a little less stressful this year since you weren't the main spotter for that race this year.
Yeah, it was definitely different. I definitely like being in the pits, helping with that kind of stuff and making sure everything's organized for the pit stops. That was pretty fun. I didn't, so the rent-a-spotter did a great job. He asked me how it's been going, and a lot this summer we raced at lacrosse where there is no spotters during the lacrosse limos, and I said, well, so far this year at lacrosse I haven't gotten yelled at once on the radio, so you should be fine. So
You are a calming voice on the radio, that's for sure.
yeah, I gotta try.
Danny, what
wait,
is it?
for years,
Danny gets
You got-
feisty.
Yeah, you got to
Nikki
explain.
would bother me. Nikki would tell me for years, I want to spot. Let me spot. I should spot. And I'm just like, I didn't know how to break it to her. I don't think mentally she could handle it, but I wouldn't, it would be tough. Like she probably could do a great job for somebody else, but I'm pretty tough to spot for. Like I wouldn't want to be my spotter, but and here she's listening to us spotting and she's saying, you should let me spot. I'm just thinking, you're out of your mind. But I mean, she likes to help. She's eager to help, but I don't
Give
know.
Danny.
That would be tough.
I got to give Danny credit. I heard him spot for Buddy Kofoid at Elko. Calm, cool, predicting things ahead of time. And a couple weeks later, I was like, if you could bottle some of that calmness and put it behind the wheel. But he just smiled and looked at me and said, there's a lot more adrenaline out there.
He
So-
spotted for me one time at Sock Center, and he's telling me in practice, he's like, you got to get down lower. You got to get lower in the corner. You're not doing it right. And he's like, get down lower. That was terrible. And then I go into the next corner and I'm pretty sure I'm in the grass. And apparently it was not good enough. He says, okay, pull in, get out of the car, pull in right now. And I pull in the pits and he's got like, I think it was LB Berthium's jacket, fireproof jacket on. That was all he could find to fit on quick. Steals my helmet and says, okay, watch this, and kicks me out of the car and shows me how it's done. So he didn't do, he wasn't that calm when he spotted for me.
We got to get
So
Danny
I
into maybe
remember-
some yoga or something to calm him down.
Yeah. Hey, getting back to this childhood at the racetrack thing, I remember, my sister was in the tower working with, back when our family had the racetrack, there was no, there was no transponders or anything like that. And I don't think we even had a scoreboard back then, but so, everything was old school, hand scored, run down the order, every car that crossed, and then cross check their scoring sheets type of deal. And I remember she was heavily involved into that, and her and my mom were really good at that. I remember those two just having it always figured out, and then there would be sort of a new person in and out all the time, kind of swapping through, just turnover or whatever and scoring. But I remember them guys, she had that stuff figured out, early. She was young then too, but I don't even know if she was
Not that you're old
maybe
now,
14
Nikki.
or something.
I am old
Well,
now,
that's-
but yeah.
Scoring the old school way, that's not easy. That's actually very difficult to do.
Well,
I
and
remember
it's,
watching
Yeah, it
that
was
too.
fun to watch. Like I always used to complain, like, how could you have this, how could you even, and then you go up there and watch it for one race. It's like, well, I'll keep my mouth shut.
Pretty fast hands. They had their
I
Yeah.
still to this day, when I go to a racetrack, I look and I'm like, that car has, like chrome numbers. That's impossible. Make that guy change his numbers. Cause that was one of the biggest things is we didn't allow duplicate numbers, and they couldn't be like, iridescent or, silver or whatever, cause they were so hard to see. And that's the first thing I look at when the cars are out practicing. I'll kind of be like, that would be tough to hand score. That number sucks. You can't read it, but it was fun. And the worst part about that, and Dan, I don't know if you ever remember this or not, but after the night was over, we, put the finishing positions down, and we'd have to walk them down to the tech building and post them. And then the teams had 30 minutes to review them and protest if they thought that something should have been different. Well, my mom doesn't enjoy confrontation. So here's me, 17 years old, 16 years old. She sends me down there to deal with, everyone. And it was back in the old school days of racing, they'd had 3 or 4 in them by the time they get to see the final positions and the final points or whatever. And there was always someone that was screaming at me, always, but got it all figured out.
Is that part of why you're so tough? Not afraid of anyone?
Probably.
I would say yes too. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
I do remember.
I've learned not to sit next to Nikki at a race when Danny's on the track. That hurts. My arms were not good for. I think I was between Nikki and Renee at a race, and yeah, I don't think I could use either one of my
That's
arms.
basically your fault at that point, Dan.
Yeah, I didn't know any better at the time. I haven't done it since.
Living on the wild
If you
side.
remember back to those days, there was those were the glory days of short track lineups, if you ask me, because that was a 2-week point average inversion back then. So there was a lot that went into it back then. You remember those days, Dan?
Yeah, it really, if you really had to have your stuff together to win 2 in a row back in those days after the second or third week, after they started using the point inversion. And I was telling Jacqueline before this too, a lot of people think of their younger days were always the good old days. And, I got to experience a lot of that stuff. So that's when all my friends were involved in racing during the Fredrickson era. So
It's nice. Does that make you guys feel cool?
I wish I could have. Yeah, I wish I could have raced. Well, I started racing young, but I wish I could have enjoyed more of those years where, like, I wish I could have raced more with Dwayne Behrens and Mike Tuma and stuff like that. Because Dwayne was obviously gone before I started racing, and then like Mike Tuma was sort of in his later years of racing before I got to where I was competing up front. Same with Jeff Martin, you know what I mean? So, but that Elko Speedway era there, the 90s and stuff, it was so cool back then, and Smokestead. In fact, I just saw Craig Smokestead at the Snowball Derby this last weekend.
Nope.
He's doing real well and stuff, and just seeing him kind of reminds me of them days and so forth.
yeah, I was telling Jacqueline too how, if you were the lucky few to still be in the pits after Bob was tired and wanted to go home, you had a spare set of keys and he'd hand them to you and say, lock the gate when you go home and bring the keys back next week. And there's not a lot of places that'll do that anymore these days. And, that was definitely fun to experience back in the 90s.
I think
That had to
Dan
have
Ryan
been-
was the last one out a lot of the time. Dan
Yes.
Ryan would shut the gates down. And speaking of people that, not being afraid of anyone, I did know better. If Dan Ryan turned his hat around, just get out of the way. Don't even get in the middle. But at that point, I had a red shirt on, a NASCAR official shirt. I thought I was untouchable. So if there was a fight in the pits, I would totally jump in the middle of it and stop them, because they can't hit me. I'm wearing an official shirt, they get in trouble. And it always worked. But the only time I would never jump in is when Dan Ryan was involved and, you know, wearing his hat normal. If he turned it around, things were going down. I'd just be like, all right, well, you're on your own. Have fun.
Have at it,
Sorry to the other
boys.
guy. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. What an education though. I mean, seriously, a life education to be able to grow up basically at a racetrack and to see the development of how racing really came around in
Oh,
those
it wasn't
years.
all glamour. It was not all glamour and fun. I mean, every Sunday morning, they would wake us up way earlier than we wanted to be awake because it's a late night Saturday. And we were under the bleachers sweeping the garbage up because if you waited till noon when you wanted to get up, the bees would be so bad it'd be dumb. A lot of
So
work.
you learned a good work ethic then.
I remember a lot of that too. That's probably how I learned how to drive a stick. I think the track beater truck at the time was a manual, so you drive that along the bleachers and throw your cans in the back, and learned how to drive that. Learned how to drive a lot of things growing up there, but it was a lot of work. Yes, every single day of the summer.
I remember talking to your dad.
Yeah,
a
you
couple
learn to wake up early because it was so hot by 2 or 3 o'clock. You couldn't understand it sometimes, you know.
I was talking to your dad a couple years ago about running when he ran that one enduro on a leap year in February with snow everywhere. I thought it was neat, right? Big race in the winter, but he he basically told me, he goes, if I ever think of something like that, bring me somewhere and get me a lobotomy, because he said they had to go around with torches and unfreeze the pipes for the bathrooms, and it was just, there was a lot of work behind the scenes to pull something like that
Shovel
off.
the bleachers.
Yeah.
We had
Yeah.
to shovel the bleachers.
Wow.
I remember I
That's-
was working in the concession stands that when we did that, and we had little space heaters everywhere because we were so frozen in there that like our fingers didn't work. I mean, it was crazy.
What is your favorite memory of the years when you guys were running the Elko track? Danny, you go first.
Well, I guess probably on a personal note, it was after the season one year, there was an old farmhouse behind the racetrack. A lot of people remember the silo was back there. The farmhouse, I think, actually got burnt down in a runaway firework, which may or may not have been an accident. But Dwayne Barons came and knocked that old silo down probably the end of October. And we had this, you know, we had like a little beer garden there with a really good sounding jukebox. And came back, and, you know, my dad was drinking O'Doul's and I was drinking Fresca or something like that. But Dwayne Barons put down a case of Bush beer and he knocked that silo down. We sat around, played the jukebox, yucked it up for a while. I was pretty young. And of course, then, you know, he had that accident not too long after that. So I would say probably that's one of the most memorable times. But on a non-personal note, you know, just being there, walking around the pits as a little kid, looking for somebody to help. In fact, I remember walking up to a guy, he had like no crew. He had a late model. I said, hey, I see you don't have any help. Can I help you? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I just remember going right to it, you know, and he's just like, how is this little kid doing all this stuff? But actually he came and introduced himself this year at lacrosse. It was Dennis Pennell. And I kind
Oh
of,
my
I
gosh.
remember doing that, and I forgot kind of who it was. I remember his name was Pennell, but and so now I've kind of kept in touch with him since then. But yeah, that was pretty fun, just doing that stuff and going around and talking to all the racers and learning what I could, you know.
Did you see him down in Florida? He was down there at the Snowball and
I
417.
saw him in
Dennis.
Florida. Yeah, now
Yeah.
that I had reconnected with him, I keep up with him, you know.
That's cool. That's cool. David, what's your
I
favorite
can't
memory
wait to
growing
hear
up?
the next two.
David, what's your favorite memory?
Like I said, I was pretty young, but just every morning waking up and going there and like watching the sunrise over the racetrack, I would probably spend most of my most of my morning just sitting in the grandstands, actually. I don't know why, it was fun. I'd do my homework out there. I would eat breakfast out there just every morning and then get to work or whatever, do mowing the lawn and keeping the place up, painting everything, trying to make everything look nice. So I guess just the quietness when no one else was around and trying to keep the place up nice. I would always try to get my friends to come work there. They'd work there for the summer. We'd paint walls and bleachers and buildings. Just the day-to-day stuff, I guess, when we had to go help out.
Cool. How about you, Nick?
Well, a couple of them. I don't know how or why, but so when we go clean after the races, we would, put the radio on over the PA. So we had something to listen to, and it never failed. It was, I don't know how, it was just so cool. But when I'd be in turn 4, overlooking the pond back behind the racetrack, and Lee Greenwood, God Bless the USA, would come on. And it was just like the most like serene, peaceful, like life is good kind of, it was just really cool. That was just kind of one of the everyday moments, but I think one of the other ones would be, it was a year after they closed the state fair race, and they had the haulers do like a parade kind of thing. And we were up on top of the tower, they had like a crow's nest thing up there. And just watching them all come down County Road 2 and then down France, it's like, this is sweet. This is a huge moment, it was really cool.
Nice. You guys really had a special upbringing. Do you realize how special that is to have been able to be raised in the thick of racing? That's just cool.
If I had to pick one memorable day, just one day, it would have to be the 2003 end of the year special. Dan, I don't know if it was an invite only race or maybe winners only race or something. And it was the first day I hung out with Jessica, who is now my wife, and Danny was racing, and it was like we were walking around, whatever kids do, holding hands or something. I don't know. Sorry, Tim. Sorry. And then Danny's racing and he wins, and I'm like, well, I gotta go help my brother now. He won, we're pretty cool. Like, it was just an awesome day. That was fun. 2003 is like a big money to win Dodge race. I can't quite remember what the name of it was, but
That's cool though.
I think it was the Apple Fair. It was the Apple Valley Ford 200 or 250. I think 250 was the last one. 250 lapper, I think it was.
Nice. So what's it like having your kiddos racing against each other?
it's awesome. I cheer for all of them.
Well, I know Nikki does
It's
too.
pretty fun. It's so much different than like when I race or when David raced, because it's really like you're going on a family trip, and then you get to bring race cars too, which make a huge difference for me because I really don't know what else to do with my time. But like for instance, we went down to Indiana beginning of this year, big quarter midget race. Of course, Nikki went with, and so she's got like the three amigos. She's got her and my wife and David's wife, and so those three got to spend all weekend in Indianapolis together while me and Dave worked on the quarter midgets and our kids raced, and it makes for some amazing family time. I mean, we like racing our kids. It's fun to watch them too, but really, the grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles and all that coming out, it's pretty nice,
I just think you guys, go ahead, Dan.
The few times I've been down to the quarter midget track the last year, that was so cool seeing, all those kids that are racing against each other in between races, playing soccer or playing football. And it's like, Wouldn't that be cool if the guys across the parking lot could do that on Saturday night between races?
You say the
Well, you
people at the
got me
racetrack.
and Jonathan Island and Billy Moan and Jacob Gady, all our kids race, and we all race against each other, and like we all get along great, you know. And it's kind of funny because not that we didn't get along, but just when you're racing big cars against each other, it's not that. It's just not that get along gang style deal, you know what I mean? But then come Sunday, when the kids are all racing, you know, put all that aside. And
I think
you know, the
makes-
quarter midget club that we have is so good. Like, you know, with all that stuff Nikki went through this year, I mean, the club has been so good to her, and I'm so thankful for those guys. You know, I get wound up sometimes at the quarter midget races. I take it really seriously, but
No.
they've been yeah, I mean, I'm not bad, but they're that every club member, every single one of them, been so good to her, and I am so thankful for them.
I was gonna say, you kind of say the racing people are like family. At the quarter midget track, it is family, like straight up. Everybody gets along. You laugh at every single thing. Kids crash, it's like everybody helps everybody no matter what. It's all for one type thing. And like Danny said, everybody towards Nikki was pretty awesome this summer. Pretty amazing how many people are like, oh, pink numbers on your car, that's a great idea, get me some, I want some. Oh, nothing to it stickers, I want to put those on my every vehicle. Like, everybody supported her. She videotapes all the races. And now she's everybody's Auntie Nikki. It's one big family for sure. It's seems to be a lot more than when it's more intense, like late model style racing. It's pretty fun.
Nick, I would say you are easily one of the best people I have ever met in racing. You are just so easy to talk to, so easy to love, and you're so damn funny. You're just one of the best people ever in racing. And your brothers, I've gotten to know them a little bit more, probably more Danny because he races, but David, you are just a tender heart too. You guys are good people. You're really good people. And I know, Danny, sometimes you get a bad reputation for being like a Tasmanian devil, which you might be at times, but at the end of the day, you guys are really good people. And I love that you are siblings that are still tight in adulthood. That's pretty damn cool.
Well, thank you. That's a heck of a compliment. But yeah, I am very rarely at a loss for words, but when it comes to the quarter midget family and things like that, yeah, I can't even imagine what this whole cancer season would have looked like without them. Like, I could take you around my house. I have posters and banners and cards, and I mean, it's just, it's pretty darn amazing. And through all this, it has reinforced in my mind that I am one of the luckiest people in the world because of the family that I do have. I would be completely screwed without the family that I have, because no matter what, I know someone's going to have my back. Someone's going to be right there. You know, it's a matter of who's closest at that time, you know, but we are pretty tight. We roll deep. We roll deep.
I love it. Any final thoughts from any of you that you want to share before we wrap it up?
I'll say the first time I heard the term Auntie Nikki was when we stopped by the camper at Oktoberfest, and I was telling David later on that day how I left the camper and I had like a little Ziploc bag with hand warmers and back warmers and some snacks and some Cheez-Its and all this stuff to get me through the afternoon. And David's like, yep, she's everybody's Auntie Nikki.
Yeah,
Doesn't
she
matter
did
how
that
old
for
you are.
both of us there. Yeah.
Well, it was gonna be cold. You have to be prepared. I
You are
have
the
extras
best.
for a reason, you know. Gotta look out for
You're
each
the
other.
best. You are the best, Nick. Oh my goodness. Well, Fredrickson family, thank you so much for joining us and being our guests on our very first podcast. We appreciate you all. And Nick, God bless. I can't wait for you to wave that checkered flag at the final radiation treatment.
I'm excited. We'll have to go live for that. That's pretty awesome. Thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you.